Hello and welcome to the Yes to Birth experience. I'm Rachel Yellen, and today we have the absolute pleasure of being with RaShaunda Lugrand, who is in Oklahoma City and the founder of the Intune Mother Project. Welcome, RaShaunda. So happy to have you.
Hello, Rachel. So happy to be here. It's very good.
It does feel good. So for all of you tuning in today, RaShaunda and I have just been having this really beautiful conversation about what we're going to talk about before we launch into the amazing work that she does and some really important teachings that she has for us. I just want to let you know that I want to really extra appreciate RaShaunda because she is just a few months ago gave birth to her fourth son. She had her fourth home birth, and she is, breastfeeding and taking care of 4 children under the age of 11. So the fact that she has carved out time to be with us is really special. I want to appreciate that. And RaShaunda has an incredible background. She is sort of a keeper of philosophy. She studied linguistics and hypnosis. She's attended births. And this Intune Mother Project is a sustainable approach to holistic familyhood. And we're going to talk to her about this concept of familyhood because I get really excited by that. And the Intune Mother Project supports women, teens, families from preconception well into their family life. And like I said, she's in Oklahoma City, and it's a nonprofit organization. So, RaShaunda, if you can just, kind of jump right in and tell us more about why you started the Intune Mother Project and what it offers, and all of the services and just what you're providing.
All right. Well, thank you for that beautiful introduction. And the Intune Mother Project is really grounded in family. It started with my husband and I having our first home birth and then our second. And then after that, it was like people just kind of gravitated towards us for a lot of information that I felt was open and available to everyone, but not everyone was privy, to it. So the third birth is what really triggered us to take this on as a project to bring more awareness to the community. And so we started out as a resource program to just offer support for families who were looking for practitioners and birth workers who were family friendly. And so we started out in Georgia after the birth of our third son, and we were living in an apartment complex, and it was multiple families. So there was always someone who was pregnant who lived not far from us and things like that. And just so happened that the people who we, in the leasing offices, they knew that we had given birth at home. And they were like, oh, and every time someone came in, they would say, you need to go see the lady over there at such and such, and talk to her and her husband because they home birth, and sometimes individuals would be interested in home birth, but a lot of times they wouldn't, so we became that family with kind of like this kooky thing that they do at home, having their babies. And it just kind of expanded. And it took for me to attend one of Wapio's trainings with the matrona. He was my second to youngest son was 3 months, and I attended her workshop in Atlanta, Georgia. And we were actually visiting here in Oklahoma at the time. And I was telling my husband, like, we've got to hurry up and get back because I am not going to miss this opportunity. And taking that training restructured my concept around how to support women in the way that I felt was natural to me and was the essence of what family should look like and community should look like. And so I started to connect with other birth workers that were local and midwives, and I just started to refer clients to these individuals like, listen, I know that this woman is interested in having her baby at home, or I know that she needs a doula, or, these different types of things. And that's how Intune Mother came to be. And a friend of ours, a good friend in California, we were visiting one time before we moved from from Arizona to Georgia. She said, oh, you're so in tune. So you're just such an in tune mother. And I was like, that sounds like a good name, for what we're doing. And that's where it came from, just through casual conversation and individuals looking at what we did and identifying it as such. And so
It's
hence,
so awesome. It's so awesome. So give us like a little, like the bullet points of all the different things that the Into Your Mother Project offers, the services that you offer.
well, we offer services from preconception education and to pregnancy and prenatal, to birth and postpartum, even into what we've been working on now is transitional. So because my background started in geriatrics, and so I worked a lot in hospice, so I'm like, some of those things need to be added to this work too, because it's necessary that we understand that birth and death are family and not enemies, that
Yeah.
there's a correlation between the circle of life. And so those are some of the services that we offer.
And what's the population of people that you most serve?
We mostly serve the African American community and underserved populations too, so that can be inclusive of anyone. That doesn't have the economic awareness or even the educational awareness. So we try to make sure that we're inclusive for every population, but African American families are where we really focus our main attention.
Awesome. So I want to come back to that in a minute, but one of the things that I mentioned before, that you talk about holistic familyhood, and you have a beautiful family, a thriving family where you homeschool your children, and I'd love for you to share, just some about why you chose that direction. In terms of I think about sort of you talk about a sustainable approach to holistic familyhood, and just tell us about that, what that means to you and what that looks like. What is holistic familyhood?
Okay. For us, it's the advancement of like understanding why family and community are important. And from a biological standpoint, we need to have the connection and the interaction, with our families, specifically mothers and children, and in partnership with our mates, to make sure that things become stable. And so that's what sustainability offers, and when we see families that where the mother may feel isolated and she's always at home with the children because the father is always away working, and things of that nature, we get conflicted within our roles, within the ways that we need to build with each other, even within our community. So what we like to practice is creating familial networks. And so within that, it may be that your neighbor, can be a support system for you. It brings community back, and it brings interaction on a level to where it doesn't mean that everybody practices the same way and things like that, which makes it holistic because it just is, and it's not where you become a person that polarizes everybody and says, okay, well, if you're not in this group like this, then it doesn't work. It becomes collective in the consciousness and the grander scheme of things that makes it be more therapeutic in the approach of how you build. Even from conception, we talk about the consciousness of conception, like choosing our partners, with a more ideal, or more direct in intention, with when we're saying, okay, he's a hot person or she's a hot person. It's like, yeah, we should, mesh together and make babies, right? So that happens, and it can be very cool and spontaneous, and things can develop and be very beautiful. But at the same time, we know that sometimes those leave leaks and holes. And so what we want to do is make sure that we understand, like, bringing it back to the old school, where's courtship? Where do we create friendship and relationship, and not just so much as where it's like just the male and the female coming together and saying, hey, we like each other, but let's find out about family, let's find out about friends, and like really build the community back up to where it becomes sustainable and it becomes your familyhood. So you have, motherhood, fatherhood, parenthood, childhood, and then we start to try to be distant, within those same compartments, but that all of those things make familyhood.
Totally. It's just so important. It's a concept that I would love to see be used more widely. People talking about, just what you said, we have childhood, we have, parenthood, but familyhood, and you're talking about an approach to family that actually creates longevity and helps. It's the glue, right? It's the glue of family. And we know now, what do we have, a 50% divorce rate in society? And it's just so intense. So I love what you're doing. There's so much more to talk about that. Can you tell us a little bit about your choice to homeschool? I don't have anybody else on the Yes to Birth experience experts that are talking about that. And just a little bit before we get into some of, your passions and some more specifics that you have to offer people here, but I want to just get a little more on that.
Homeschooling is like an extension to home birth to our family. We feel that if we are empowering ourselves to give birth independently at home and creating those comfort environments for us to do that, then it's the same as when you are educating your children. There are teachings that say mother is first teacher and first nurse, and so that concept has always stuck with me early on, even before I had children, that I wanted to be the individual that gives them the tools to go out in the community and be who they need to be, because I carried you, I know what that is, and I feel like the children, they choose you because they know what you can do with them. And homeschool was one of those things that I feel like my children chose me to give them education and tools to go out there in the world and to be their best selves. And not that we can't get that in a traditional school model, but it's different. It's different because not that those teachers today, they don't live in the community with your children. They may drive 45 minutes to an hour to get to work every day. You don't know them like you used to know in your community schools. And so that to me is very important. And the climate today is different. And my children, they see the news today and they hear stories and they're like, I'm so glad we're homeschooled, and it makes me feel good that they like it, and that they enjoy being at home with me as their teacher, not just me, but their dad. He fulfills a part, and he's like, she's a teacher, I'm the principal, so he makes sure that they are, in line. And it's just, and for us it's fun, and we get to travel and do things differently because we don't have to worry about taking them out of school on this day or that day, and it's flexible, and it's really a lot more economical than what a lot of people think as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so look, I'm going to say, do you mind if I get my baby? Because
bring your baby.
He wants to be nursed.
Okay, bring it. I love it. Okay. We'll hold on right here.
Just 1 second.
Yeah, take your time.
It's okay. Oh, see, this is my baby boy. And he's like not having it right now. He's like, Dad, if you don't find that lady for me. Okay.
This is the best. You are making the Yes to Birth experience right now. Look at that angel. Yeah. And I just, as he starts getting settled, getting his nourishment, RaShaunda, it's like, this whole Yes to Birth experience is really about, creating this healthier, less painful, empowering, satisfying pregnancy and birth. And I just want to highlight to all the people who are listening that as you're talking, I'm like, you are an example of what it means to really look inside of yourself and to ask yourself, what do you and your husband have been making choices from the very beginning of what do you value? What is important to you? What creates sustainability? And your actions, your choices are a reflection of your values. And I want to highlight that, because it's like we could sort of talk around it, but for all the Yes to Birthers, RaShaunda and her family are an example of being in a state of empowerment where you look to your values and you say, what do I care about the most? What do I value? And then you start making choices that are based on that. And your choices, right? Not everybody's going to homeschool their kids. Not everybody's going to have a home birth. And that's totally fine. We're not saying that you're better because you homeschool and you have a home birth. But what you're asking is that community is important to you and connection is important to you, and sustainability and being really deeply immersed in your community, plus flexibility and travel and economics, like all of that. And I just really want to highlight that as as we go through our talk tonight. So thank you for embodying exactly what we're here to share with our listeners.
Yeah, I just appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this, because I too feel that, one of the greatest things to me is the fact that when individuals make a decision, they need to understand that whether it is a positive or a contradictory, or conflicting decision, the universe is going to say yes. We don't get to say, oh man, I didn't want that to happen. It really makes you be like, for me, birth made me make a lot of decisions that were sometimes hard, sometimes took a lot of maturity to make, and overall, what I've seen manifest from it is that when you do it without the restraint of fear, you end up seeing the abundance of what the universe has to offer you. And that's really what it always is. It's always abundance. It's never lack. And we don't have because we don't believe that we have the capabilities of allowing it,
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I want to, one of the things that I want to make sure that we have time to get to is, when I asked you about, what are you most passionate about and what do you want to talk about? The first thing that you said was holding space for the release of resistance and trauma in birth work. So can we shift into you sharing some about that?
Yeah, that's a really deep passion of mine, because I have had, like in our population, African American women, we home birth, but we have not been highlighted as such. There's not a lot of representation for our community. And I think that because of historical context, we've been wrapped up in this narrative to believe that is all that we can have access to is those stories. And so what my work is specifically in NLP and in hypnosis is that we learn how to train and reprogram our thinking in a way that allows us to ignore the naysay, and allows us to ignore the context and propaganda around what it means to be a Black woman giving birth, what it means to be a person giving birth at all. Because what you think is what you become, but what you hear most consistently becomes an echo in your thoughts. And so by changing the language, changing the narrative, creating a level of inclusivity that doesn't necessarily mean that we're talking about race relations. We're talking about human relations. And so when we're thinking of it from that perspective, that nobody is superior over another person, that everybody has the ability to create equitable relationships and behaviors and things of that nature based upon your choices, then things start to shift a little bit differently. But when we continuously hear the same sad stories, then we end up with a place, on the map that doesn't look like a road to anything successful.
RaShaunda, I don't mean to interrupt. I just want to ask you very specifically, there are many, many people listening who have not been exposed to Black women having babies. And they, many of us are listening and saying, well, what is the narrative of birth and death in the Black community? Can you enlighten many of us that are listening?
That the main narrative is that Black women are in danger, and that we're not safe. And specifically in the hospitals, or institutions. And I think that a lot of times we get those statements because of historical jargon. It's true. I'm not saying that it's not true, that it does happen, and that Black women are being put in a position to have to fight for their voices to be heard and things of that nature. But I'm going to say, okay, he just gave us a truth. I'm going to say that a lot of the information to say, okay, Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die than any other population of women, specifically white women. What about the other percentage that are surviving? So can we talk about the survivability and switch the narrative so that we're not continuing to spend that same energy around? Because words and thoughts manifest into what they are. So the more conversations you get people to have about the disparities, not that you're ignoring them, but you're not creating a solution by continuously talking about them. You create solutions by looking at what is happening and that is working. And so those things that work, then you begin to have conversations more frequently about those. And I think that that's a way to empower individuals into believing too that you are safe. You're as safe as you want to be, and you're as safe as the decisions that you make to be safe, and that's where part of what my work is to do, is to help individuals to understand that you are always safe. You're always saved. There's nothing more that can save you from yourself than yourself,
Mm-hmm.
Or from other individuals that may not have your best interest at heart. And so a lot of it is just internal work that I don't think that we've had or taken the time to invest in. And it doesn't cost what people think it costs. It just costs discipline.
Mm-hmm. So if we're rewriting the narrative and you're educating people around that, what is the narrative that you want people to be speaking about in their communities? What is the truth about what is working?
The truth is that if we're saying 29% of the population is having a hard time, right? Then what's going on with the other 71%? What is happening in that community that makes for the positivity that we need in order to be effective? And so if we are looking at those opportunities to have the conversation, to really build on, you see that picture, to really build on what comes next, like his generation. My goal is that his generation understands that we can thrive. It's not even just about surviving anymore, because we can do that. We've done it, but it's about thriving, and that we have to get to a point of understanding that survivability is not enough. It's not enough. And so in order for us to really be stronger in our connection with each other, it starts with our children. It starts with how we program them. It starts with what we teach them and what we expose them to, how we exploit ourselves and other individuals, you know. And I think that at this particular time, there's a lot of exploitation that's taking place that keeps us in a position of vulnerability and fear and lack because of the language, because of what we tell ourselves and what we allow others to tell us.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I feel like that's the remedy. The remedy is like deeper self-work, deeper self-talks. You know, people say, oh, you know, you want me to talk to myself? You should. You know, you should talk to yourself and not look at it and say, oh, well, people say you're crazy because you talk to yourself. You know, no, you're not crazy because you talk to yourself, you know, because then whose voice are you listening to? You're listening to your inner voice, your higher self. And so that higher being is what we're looking forward to, being able to progress in our work, you know, and is to make individuals feel comfortable with that space. Because sometimes that space can be hard to connect to because you've been consistently told that it has to be something outside of yourself.
Totally.
To manage.
Totally. Thank you so much for just, you know, just the clarity around that and just giving us some insight about some of the action items and what we can actually do proactively to make, you know, to actually start to see the change and create more of that. And one of the things that I know, RaShaunda, that you offer is a webinar. You have an upcoming webinar, and if you could just tell us a little bit about what people, where they can find that, and what's going to be included in that webinar, we'd love to know.
Yes, and in the webinar that's coming up soon, what my goal is to help individuals to experience, and I use the word experience really, really fluidly, is to experience the transformation of thought around the way we perceive the impact that we have socially on birth work and the community of consumers that are in childbearing years. How do we approach them? How do we speak to them? How do we speak to it from our own perspective versus the social norms that has been created? And the idea is to make sure that we're using language that expands the empowerment for families to be able to say, yes, I can give birth fearlessly. It doesn't even have to be at home. You know, it can be a birth center. It can be a hospital. You can still have an accomplished birth in the hospital. You just have to have tools, you know, and birth workers have to understand and know what those tools are as well. And a lot of times women are not hiring because we're not really socially giving that information. Look, he's like, I'm going back in. I birthed, I'm ready. And we're not taking those options to hire individuals because there's not the social impact piece is missing. You know, what are you doing? Where are you going? You get it? Yeah. So we're not exposing the community to the right concepts. And so I want to make sure that in this webinar that individuals understand how important it is that their intentions and directives are community centered. And so the more you're community centered, then you're able to really make a bigger impact on the work that needs to be done. Totally. So they can find it. It can be found on our website, timcenter.org, in the training section.
Awesome. So I want to point all of the Yes to Birthers to go to TIM, T-I-M, that's the Intune Mother, T-I-M, Center, CENTER.org. And you can see everything that RaShaunda and her team provides through that website. And I am guessing that there may be some other opportunities if people want to reach out to you and have you come to their communities and give talks about the importance of language and creating these sustainable, holistic families, that I'm guessing that you do that.
Yes, I do.
RaShaunda, I have one more question for you, and it's funny because to all the other experts, I ask them, I say, when you had children, if you could go back, back in time to the younger version of yourself who gave birth, and give yourself some advice. And it's funny because, look, you have this beautiful, delicious, scrumptious, I just want to reach through my machine and just grab him. What's his name?
His name is Mikhail.
Mikhail, beautiful. So you clearly have it down on what to do when you're in labor and how to handle it, and how to be resourced during labor. What are some of your pearls? Just a couple of things that you're like, oh, okay, people having babies, here is what works.
Intimacy.
Yes.
Intimacy works. It's the same thing that you did to create the baby. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have intercourse. It means intimacy, touch, connection, breathing, vocalization, using your words. Those things, they manifest into something beautiful because they allow you to get outside of your body.
For you as somebody who's so into language and the importance of your thoughts and speaking to yourself, when you were giving birth, did you have a word or a phrase or a sound that you thought that really worked for you?
Moaning. Using my gut sounds, like really deep breathy sounds was the thing for me. And also my husband, we practiced hypnobirthing. We took some trainings before with our first son, and so they've always stuck with us. So his voice, the voice of the father, just sends that rush of oxytocin. It also keeps the balance to know that you're connected. And so those things were my two. So hearing someone verbalizing and speaking you through guided meditation was one. And then also just utilizing breath, slow breathing.
Totally. It's funny because, in my work in, my company is Yes to Birth. And, I teach these classes, and that's exactly, I have my audio relaxation program that becomes the voice of deep relaxation. And I love, and I always tell the couples, I always say, for the partner, practice with the scripts and the relaxation and the breathing together, because when the partner's voice becomes the voice of soothing and comfort and relaxation, you have that for the rest of your lives. You have that to promote intimacy. So I'm sure when your husband says, RaShaunda, now it's time to relax, which is a very hypnobirthing expression.
Yes.
That your body goes, oh, right, and that can be used in any situation to promote intimacy, even having intimacy out in the world when, in a public place, that it can create that kind of connection. Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to say before we sign off?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to share and to be on a platform that is family friendly, and that if anyone is interested in learning more about us, you've given our website, you can definitely go on and check us out and find out more about what we do. And if you want to get involved, with the support systems, we're here for the community.
Beautiful, beautiful. RaShaunda Lugrand from Oklahoma City, founder of In Tune Mother Project. Thank you so much for being here. It's been a total pleasure. And to all you Yes to Birthers, thank you again for listening, for being present and thoughtful, and really taking in what RaShaunda had to offer. We'll see you again soon. Bye.
All right. Bye, all. It was a pleasure.
I am so happy that you're a part of the Yes to Birth movement. Please visit yes2birth.com to learn more about my pregnancy, birth, and beyond audio relaxation program, my childbirth education and techniques programs, and my private counseling and coaching. Yes to Birth. I'm Rachel Yellen. Bye.